Jackie Speier is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for also having the National Defense Authorization Act up in Armed Services. Commissioner, you announced a conclusion of a 10-month internal investigation, and despite hundreds of interviews, you insisted that there was no written report. And yet documents obtained by the committee reveal that the NFL agreed to a written report when it took control of the investigation. I'd like us to put that up on the screen. In the very first paragraph, it says, and I quote, "As part of the investigation, Wilkinson Walsh will complete a written report of its findings." Is this the agreement you signed, yes or no?
I have never seen the agreement before, Congressperson, but I know that we signed an engagement letter that was essentially the same engagement letter that was signed by the Washington Commanders.
So you made the decision to receive an oral rather than a written report, is that correct?
We did in October of that year on the basis of providing confidentiality to the people who came forward. It was important.
Well, that's bogus, because those reclaiming my time, the survivors have begged you to release that report. It is the commanders, it's Dan Snyder, that had PIs hired to intimidate them and show up at their doorsteps. So the question is, were you ever aware of a written report, or were you ever aware of a PowerPoint presentation? Yes or no?
I am not aware of that, and I want to clarify something you said in respect to people coming forward. People coming forward, their confidentiality was important to them. Some have come forward and not been concerned about their privacy or confidentiality, but there are many others. The vast majority of the people that were spoken to in the context of this investigation have wanted to continue their privacy and their confidentiality.
Will you free Beth Wilkinson? Will you free Beth Wilkinson to be able to speak freely about the findings from her internal investigation with this committee?
As we've said many times before in the context of this, the details in the investigation of Beth Wilkinson are privileged. We're going to protect the confidentiality and privacy.
We're asking you whether or not. Okay, let me ask you this then. For those victims that would like to have the report released as it relates to them, will you release that?
We couldn't do that and protect the confidentiality. That's a issue of.
That's not true. You could not if the victims are willing to have that information about themselves released.
I'm not an attorney, but we can't waive privilege for some that would impact others. I don't believe so.
Well,
but I'm happy to have our attorneys be able to address that with you. I'm not an attorney.
So the Carolina Panthers, there was an investigation of them 2 years before the Commanders' investigation. They included several recommendations for the league to strengthen its protection of workers. One was a specific prohibition to non-disclosure agreements to limit reporting of potential violations. Did the league ever adopt that recommendation?
Mary Jo White made 4 recommendations. I think that's what you're referring to. We implemented 3 of the 4. The one we didn't, that we were concerned with, was that all workplace violations or allegations had to be reported to our office. We don't think we were situated to be able to handle all that, but obviously that's something that the individual clubs are going to have to be able to address their own workplace.
If there's
a violation of law or personal conduct policy, that will be reported.
All right, reclaiming my time. Would you put in place a prohibition that non-disclosure agreements cannot be used by the various organizations under the NFL?
Well, I think this is similar to what the chairwoman mentioned in your legislation. And we said that we are operating on the basis that non-disclosure agreements cannot prevent a witness from coming forward and sharing the information with us. We understand the legislation.
I'm just asking what you would do professionally yourself.
Right now, we do not allow our employees to use a non-disclosure agreement not to cooperate with a league investigation.
So non-disclosure agreements by each of your various teams are not being used? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that.
The
They're state by-
gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman may answer her question.
I'm not saying that. State by state, our teams operate in different states. They have different laws. So the federal legislation is something that we're willing to work with the committee on.
Thank you. The gentleman's
I yield
time
back.
has expired. And before we close, I want to offer the ranking member an opportunity to offer any